What is up, DW Nation? You already know what time it is. It is Thursday. So you know what that means. I'm here for another AEW recap. And with AEW's Revolution being next week, well, it means some big stuff had to happen this week. So we got ourselves a qualifying match for the Face of the Revolution ladder match. We also got ourselves a big message from Inner Circle's Chris Jericho and MJF to the Young Bucks ahead of their AEW tag match. And also, we have ourselves a return. Yes, Darby Allin is back after being gone for the last 2 weeks. In case you guys didn't know, he got kind of sort of kidnapped. Yeah, that happened. So we saw him return this week in a big way. So without further ado, I am Kevin Jones, the Disciples of Wrestling, and let's get down to it. So we start off the show with our first match of the night, which is Jon Moxley versus Ryan Nemeth. And Moxley just beats him up. Honestly, there wasn't much to this. Ryan got in some offense. He did something. But overall, Moxley put a whooping on him. Yeah, he did. He ends the match with a front face lock into the paradigm shift for the win. And then we see him cut a promo after the match where he talks about Kenny Omega and this exploding barbed wire death match. Yeah, the exploding barbed wire death match. All that in one sentence is the match. And he talks about how it's just too much to resist. Because just from a man who just loves to fight in general, this guy just loves the feeling or the thought of even having this match. Honestly, as a child, he talks about the amount of aggression that he wanted to get off through his childhood and leading all up to this match. He says that he's going to give this everything he got and he can't wait to do it and how much he loves this beautiful sport. And if this turns out to be the last thing he does, he will give this everything he has. So our second match of the night, it is Team Taz's Brian Cage and Ricky Starks versus the Varsity Blondes. Starting off, we actually see Brian Pillman Jr. control the pace for the majority of the beginning. And as he goes up for a springboard to hit on Ricky Starks, Starks counters by shoving him outside of the ring, leading up to a Brian Cage powerbomb onto the ring post, going into picture-in-picture. Now Team Taz has the control coming out of picture-in-picture, but Brian Pillman Jr. fights them off, leading to the hot tag to get in Griff Garrison. Griff Garrison, of course, goes wild as he brings out Brian Cage onto the outside of the ring, hitting a huge splash on Ricky Starks in the corner to ultimately hit a great outside dive onto Brian Cage as he's outside stunned. So we see Garrison come in and start to really take control of the match. But unfortunately, we see Brian Cage tag himself in as the Varsity Blondes aim to hit a tag team move. And we see Ricky Starks spears Griff Garrison, and then we see a wicked clothesline from Brian Cage to Brian Pillman, and then he hits the drill claw for the win. Now, as these guys are celebrating after the match, we see the Titantron, and it is one of the most infamous short films from Darby Allin as usual, but this time it's not just Darby Allin. We see, of course, Darby Allin's signature card from all of his short films, but this time Sting's driving it. And as we see Sting, he actually has the body bag similar to Team Taz when they were dragging Darby Allin in a body bag. We see the same sort of body bag being dragged by this car. We see Sting stop and then open the body bag. And of course, everyone knows it's Darby Allin. And everyone knows Darby Allin's signature face paint. But this time he has Sting's signature face paint on. And Darby Allin cracks a smile. I ain't never seen this man crack a smile. And this leads to Sting's entrance music hitting. And of course, Sting coming out with the same body bag. And, you know, typically you would think it's Darby again. You know, we saw him open it. It makes sense. But he opens it and it's Taz's son, Hook. And he points to the sky. And coming from the rafters, we see Mr. Darby Allin zip-lining down. As he gets into the ring, we see Sting and Darby charge into the ring, taking out Team Taz. As Darby Allin takes Ricky Starks outside of the ring, hitting a huge dive on Ricky Starks. Then we see Sting hit the Stinger Splash into the Scorpion Death Drop, as we see Sting and Darby leave Team Taz flat on their backs. So next up, we actually get an interview, a sit-down interview from Tony Schiavone with the newlyweds, Mr. Kip Sabian, Miss Penelope Ford, and the best man, Miro. And they talk about what happened at the wedding, and of course, those three are firmly disappointed in what happened. And Miro is just heartbroken as he talks about how much he liked Charles and how much he enjoyed Charles's company throughout the entire time that he was the butler. He talks about how all is forgiven but not forgotten. And as he's talking about how Charles can come back into the fold with those three, we actually see Tony Schiavone get approached to and given a note from the best friends where they are calling out and issuing a challenge to Kip Sabian and Miro for a match at Revolution, where we see yes, no, maybe. And as we see Kip Sabian and Miro read this, they talk about how childish it is, and they balled it up. Miro weirdly takes a bite out of it, and then we see it go to commercial break. Unfortunately, we didn't get an answer, but hopefully we get one next week to this challenge. So, our third match of the night, we actually see Jake Hager versus Brandon Cutler. This was unfair again, as we see Jake Hager just squash Mr. Cutler in a short manner. We see him end up hitting a huge clothesline for the win. Yeah, Cutler didn't stand a chance. After the match, we see Inner Circle's Wardlow and Santana and Ortiz come out to beat up Mr. Cutler even further, where we see the Young Bucks come out and just have a super kick party. They hit the super kicks on Santana and Ortiz, and then they set up the super kicks on Mr. Wardlow himself. And of course, Jake Hager, he's smart enough, he just gets out of the ring, as we got word that he's actually preparing for his next MMA fight recently. After that, we end up seeing the Young Bucks calling out Jericho and MJF as they're frustrated. They're tired of the games. They don't want to wait until Revolution. They want to do this thing now. And as we get the intro music of Jericho, we actually see on the Titantron, Jericho and MJF actually have a message for the Young Bucks, as they have the Young Bucks' dad, Papa Buck. And he's all bloodied up, honestly. And then they just throw him into their complimentary little truck backstage, just leaving him there. And then they go run off to their escape van. And to see the Young Bucks approach Papa Buck, and Matt Jackson is just so furious. So he runs down the car as MJF and Chris Jericho are leaving. Once we come from commercial breaks, we actually see that Papa Buck's getting put into the ambulance, and we see that the Good Brothers are actually by the Young Bucks' side. And as Nick Jackson gets into the truck to leave with his dad, we actually see Gallows and Anderson also accompany him in the ambulance. And Nick tells Matt to go ahead and get their mom and meet them at the hospital. So our next match of the night is Mr. Hangman Adam Page versus Private Party's Isaiah Cassidy. And as Isaiah Cassidy's coming out with Big Money Matt, we see Big Money Matt start to wave out somebody from the backstage area to come out to the entranceway where they are. And it's none other than TH2. As Big Money Matt paid him off last week to take out Adam Page, it's looking like he's looking to capitalize from that investment. So, as, of course, Hangman makes his entrance, he goes straight after Matt Hardy. And, of course, Isaiah Cassidy thinks he can capitalize off of this. Well, he thought wrong. So, Hangman ends up taking control and dominating for the beginning of this match. And actually the majority of this match, as we see, he looks to hit the buckshot lariat early. And as he starts to leave his feet from the apron, we actually see Matt Hardy grab Hangman's ankle and bring him down, drawing Hangman to come down and actually approach Matt. And as he does that, Matt Hardy shoves Hangman into the ring post, targeting that right arm of his. And throughout this, we actually see John Silver and Alex Reynolds from the Dark Order come out, explain this to Aubrey Edwards, and Aubrey throws Matt Hardy from the ringside area. And as he's going to the backstage, we actually see Matt Hardy look at TH2 and let them know to stay out there and keep their eyes on the Dark Order. So as this is going on, we actually see what Matt Hardy did pay off as Isaiah Cassidy really starts to work over that arm. And throughout this, we actually see Hangman start to get some offense in as he hits a rolling forearm strike. And ultimately, we actually saw an amazing match from Isaiah Cassidy as he really stepped up and become a huge challenge for Hangman Adam Page. But inevitably, we saw Hangman's experience kick in as he hits the Death Eye drop. And he ends up hitting this for the win. And as he's starting to celebrate, we see Matt Hardy come out and he lets them know that it was a huge mistake for Page to turn his back on Matt Hardy and look to join the Dark Order, because now Matt is looking and focusing now on the members of Dark Order, and he plans on taking them out one by one. And as he says this, he has Dark Order's number 5, and he throws him from off of the stage onto the Timekeeper's table. So our next match is the next match in the AEW Women's Eliminator Tournament, where we see the Native Beast Nyla Rose versus Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. And starting off, we actually see Britt Baker take control of Nyla Rose for a nice headlock in the beginning. But ultimately, Nyla Rose fights her off and hits a trio of power slams, leading to Britt Baker to leave the ring, going into the crowd area, and actually to throw a fit because she's frustrated on what isn't going right. And then she comes back in thinking that she learned her lesson, but she didn't really learn her lesson, because Nyla Rose just picks back up where she left off, really taking control and using her power advantage over Britt Baker. Now Britt Baker takes a break as she rolls back outside the ring because she's hurt, and we see Nyla Rose start to slow down. And with this, Britt Baker takes advantage as she charges Nyla Rose's left arm into the ring post area and really takes control of this match on the outside of the ring. So as we go into picture-in-picture, we come out of picture-in-picture with Nyla Rose hitting a huge superplex on Britt Baker. And as it looks like Nyla wants to hit another suplex on Britt Baker, she actually counters into hitting a suplex of her own on Nyla Rose into the turnbuckle. Now we actually see Nyla Rose start to get the momentum back as she sets Rebel up as she looks to get involved and hits her with a huge choke slam on the apron side. Now this leads to a huge pump kick from Britt Baker onto Nyla Rose's left arm, really just adding a bigger target. But ultimately, we see again Nyla Rose start to shift the momentum back into her side as Rebel looks to try to get involved again. And she sets up Rebel with a huge cannonball. And it looks like she's about to hit another one on Britt Baker. But it looks like Britt actually rolls her up and starts to set her up for the lockjaw submission. As this is going on, Nyla Rose stands up and hits a huge Samoan drop on Miss Baker and actually gets a near fall out of it. So as this is going on, we actually see Britt Baker set up for the crucifix bomb for a near fall for Baker. And then as Nyla Rose rolls through, we actually see Britt Baker sets up for the lockjaw submission again. But once again, we see Nyla Rose break out of this, and she sets up for the beast bomb and gets a near fall off of that. And that was mainly because Nyla Rose wasn't able to hit it with full capacity as there's damage to her left arm. Now, as we see both girls start to get up, we see Britt Baker go for a super kick, and this actually gets countered as Nyla Rose ducks down and sets up for another beast bomb, and this time it is for the win for Nyla Rose, and she is now moving on in the AEW Women's Championship Eliminators Tournament. So now, the main event, and it is the qualifier for the Face of the Revolution ladder match. And it is Rey Fenix versus the Murder Hawk Monster, Lance Archer. I gotta let this settle in a little bit. As I let this settle in, I need you to understand this match was a beauty. And now, it's time for me to explain it. So starting off, this was very, very even in the beginning. We see Rey Fenix eventually start to get in some offense as he hits a huge senton suicida on Lance Archer on the outside of the ring. And as Jake Snake Roberts looks to get involved, Rey Fenix actually jumps over him to hit a huge senton on Lance Archer to get him off balance. Now we actually see Lance Archer start to get some momentum back on his side as he hits, just a huge chop on Rey Fenix. And this really just threw off Rey Fenix's base for the majority of this part, where we see Rey Fenix actually get slowed down to next to no offense. And Lance Archer's just picking this man off as Rey Fenix looks to hit a huge springboard, but Lance Archer catches him for a possible choke slam, but Ray Phoenix lands on his feet on the apron side to where Lance Archer hits a huge chop, just turning him inside out on the apron side to go onto ringside, where Lance Archer sets him up with a huge cannonball roll onto the barricade. And as we come back from break, we actually see Lance Archer and Lance Archer and Phoenix are back in the ring, and Phoenix actually hits a huge double stomp on the back of Lance Archer's neck, and then Lance Archer hits a huge fisherman buster on Ray Phoenix for a near fall. Now, more and more as this match progresses, we actually see Ray Phoenix trap the leg of Lance Archer to where he runs halfway through across the top rope and hits a huge kick on the side of Lance Archer's head. And then, of course, we see Lance Archer get offense back as he starts to set up Ray Phoenix for the old school variation of the springboard backflip, his signature move. I mean, it's just amazing. But of course, Lance Archer tries to go to something he don't know much about, which is the top rope district, where Ray Phoenix is so comfortable. He tries to hit a move on Ray Phoenix, and in time, Ray Phoenix turns this into the Spanish Fly. And he gets a near fall off of that. And then, of course, Lance Archer tries, as Ray Phoenix looks to build up momentum, he hits the pounce on Ray Phoenix, leading to a choke slam for another near fall. Now, as we actually see this match comes down to a minute left. Yes, this match is almost about to hit all of the rest of TV time. And we actually see Lance Archer set up Ray Phoenix for the blackout for the win. And now he is qualified for the Face of the Revolution ladder match. Now, of course, all I can say is what a match. It was a phenomenal match. It was a beauty. And like they talked about on commentary, it is arguably an early argument for match of the year coming into 2021. But, of course, Revolution's next Sunday. So you know they're going to give us a great banger of a go-home show next week, as next week is the AEW Crossroads edition, where we actually will see Cody Rhodes and Red Velvet team up to go up against Shaquille O'Neal and Miss Jade Cargill. So, you know I'm going to be there. I'm going to be watching it, and I'm going to be analyzing it next week for you guys. So, of course, if you guys haven't already, check out that NXT recap that Jordan just put in to our YouTube channel. And then I'll be back with you guys on Saturday as I do the Friday night SmackDown recap. But until next time, I'm Kevin Jones, the Disciples of Wrestling, and that's wrestling.